Hello, and welcome to another video. And in this one, I am comparing different papers and how they hold up under marker art, marker drawings, marker scribbles. So I'm starting off with just a plain old sketchbook paper, one that I've had for ages. I don't know what it is. It's just the cheap generic sketchbook paper that you get. And for all of these, I'm testing out a few different markers. So I have my single Copic sketch, 110 the black. It's the only Copic marker I have. I have a Pentel outline marker. I have the markers that I got from the Grabie box. And I have these different Copic knockoffs from Creative Place and Typo. I will link both those videos above if you haven't seen them. You probably should. Now I actually have a Copic to compare things to that I was able to get at half price, which is really good. I also have these Winsor & Newton Pro markers, which I will talk more about in an upcoming video, my thoughts on them. And then two different Crayola markers. I have the Supertip and the Brushtip. Just to compare because they are ones that are very, very easy to get. Um, but yeah, so as you can see, I was not focused on where the camera was, so I'm redoing that first one. I'm glad I caught it before I got too into it. I'm very, very terrible at this. But like I said, this is just cheap, generic, uh, sketchbook paper. It's the kind of books that you can get for like $4 or $5 at any cheap craft store or generic store. It's not good paper. So this is sort of like the baseline. It's, I think, the books that we also start on. The markers that work best on it though are the Crayola ones. They don't bleed half as much as the rest, which are just like blurring the edges completely out. There's no defined lines there. But the Crayola ones do work pretty well on it, which makes sense. Crayola markers are designed for kids, and these particular books are cheap and easy to buy, so you can get a lot of them for your kids to work with. Um, so that does make sense, but yeah, you can see how fuzzy it is. No distinction, no yeah, they would not be easy to work with, even though it does feel like very, very smooth paper. Um, yeah. And again, this one I got for Christmas, from my brother. I can also link that video if you're interested. Now I don't know what this paper is actually made of. The description, that came with it described the cover, which is 100% cotton leather. The actual paper itself, it didn't say, which, while the cover is really, really nice, when you're getting a sketchbook, you want to know what the paper is made of. So I've just been testing out as it is very, very smooth and it didn't hold color pencils very nicely. I was like, maybe it's a bit more geared towards because it is very thin. But as I come to see that, might not have been a bad thing. I just tend to lean towards thicker paper. Um, but again, it does bleed significantly. The edges are very, very fuzzy, but it is significantly better than the generic sketchbook. Um, but it's not, I wouldn't recommend it for that. So I'm still figuring out what this book paper is for. Um, but as for now, again, the Crayola works pretty well on it. I don't know if you can see properly, but it is less fuzzy, like the edges, they are less fuzzy on the paper I got for Christmas. Um, but that's just, yeah, something to keep in mind. And moving on, I just wanted to test out this synthetic paper from the paper mill as it is good for alcohol ink, and I thought it'd be funny just to see how the markers hold up on it. And I was actually surprised. Like that dried so quickly. It actually, you could do some interesting, creative, sort of abstract art. Um, Now the typo markers dry slightly faster than the creative place markers, but not with enough significance that it really mattered. Um, the Grabie Sta Markers dry slightly less fast, but again, it's not, it's just like a slow gradient. Now, the ones that really, really take ages to dry are the Crayola ones. Yeah, they stay wet on there for quite a while. But I was really expecting them all to stay significantly wet for a while. Um, Now you couldn't, you would do specific types of art on this, I would think. Um, But I was surprised at how well it worked. The worst one is the Pentel outline marker, as it really doesn't do what it's supposed to do on this type of paper, but it works. Next up, I have this cardstock from Lavinia. It is 330 GSM, so it is very, very thick. But there were significant amount of paper in this packet for a reasonable price of like $12. And I was told that cardstock can be quite good for markers, and you can get it cheaper than you can the specific marker paper from artist brands. So I thought I would give it a try, and it is crisper. Again, it's the Crayola markers don't dry quite as fast on this as it does on the cheaper generic paper. Um, but it, I'm not planning on using a whole lot of um Crayola markers on this. It's just something that I wanted to test out in comparison, but it does work really, really well. The markers, the more traditional brands, I guess you would say, and they are a lot crisper. There's a lot less bleeding. It there's still a little, I mean, there always is, but it's more of a test of like how much. Say you want to do dots and dashes, how much is it gonna bleed? And it's a lot better. Next up, I have Canson's Bristol paper. It's a 250 GSM, and again, it is significantly better than the uh, cheap generic paper. Uh, but it is quite comparable to the cardstock. Now, I think this wasn't too badly priced. What was really annoying is I couldn't get that kind of cardstock in um, A4 size, and I couldn't get this in A5 size, at least where I was shopping. So I don't have a really good, like, direct, like, yeah, this is the comparable price, because I think this was $22 for 20 sheets, and the other one was like $12 for 50, I think. So it's like y- it's comparable price wise, so it's not necessarily going to be like cheaper than the other. It just sort of depends. I think that the Bristol paper is there's slightly less bleeding. It's really hard for me to see, but the colors are slightly less vibrant. So they're more vibrant on the cardstock, but less bleeding on the other on the Bristol. So it really depends. But the last paper I'm trying is this bleed proof Canson paper. It's only 70 GSM, which is really, really thin, but there's like no bleeding at all, like a tiny, tiny little bit. So if that was something that you were really concerned about, this would be the one to work with. But I'm so not used to this thin paper. And the Crayola markers don't dry as fast on this as the other ones. Everything is more or less comparable. You can see a little bit of that with the Winsor and Newton marker, but because it is so, so smooth, it's smoother than all the others, I would say. It takes more time to dry, but it is so crisp. Um, but I it really depends on what you feel like you want to work on. It's a mix of things. And I don't know how I'm going to work with these in the future, so it's something that I'll just have to play around with and see. But these three papers, the Bristol paper, the bleed proof paper, and the cardstock, they're all really good. So that's really, really handy to know. Um, So I'm going to play around with them. I think it'd depend on what you want, how you would work with it. Um, but yeah, I was also surprised by this synthetic paper for alcohol ink. That's going to be fun to play around with. But that's all for this video, so thank you for watching, and if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!